In other global news that we are tracking at this hour, barricades set up near Trump Tower and throngs of journalists outside the prosecutor's office. New York police have tightened the security ahead of a possible historic indictment of former U.S. President Donald Trump over hush money paid to a porn actress. The timing, however, remains uncertain as of now. Stormy Daniels says that she had an affair with Trump. She claims the former U.S. president gave her $130,000 before the 2016 election to not discuss the encounter. Trump has maintained that nothing of that sort ever happened. And in 2018, he told the reporters he knows nothing about any payment ever made. Now, if an indictment is filed, the 76-year-old Republican would become the first president to be charged with a crime. A possible indictment would send shockwaves through the 2024 White House race as well, in which Trump is running to regain office. The police officials have geared up for an arrest or self-surrender, which would see an ex-leader of the U.S. booked, fingerprinted and possibly even handcuffed. Now, Trump has been citing a political witch hunt against him. He says it is an attempt to take down the leading candidate in the Republican Party. Trump's former lawyer turned enemy, Michael Cohen, who has testified before the grand jury, told the Congress in 2019 that he made the payment on Trump's behalf. The payment to Daniels, if not properly accounted for, could result in a misdemeanor charge for falsifying business records. And that might be raised to a felony if the false accounting was intended to cover up a second crime, such as a campaign finance violation. Now, in the United States of America, campaign finance violation is punishable by up to 4 years behind bars. The legal experts say that the argument would be difficult to prove in court and any jail time is far from certain. An indictment would begin a lengthy process that could last months, as the case would face legal issues and move towards jury selection. The former U.S. President Donald Trump is facing multiple legal challenges and investigations. The cases include his handling of classified documents and his alleged efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential elections. For more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
A Manhattan grand jury may decide to indict former U.S. President Donald Trump as early as Wednesday. However, incoming reports from law enforcement also indicate that that indictment may be pushed back to next week because more witnesses are expected to testify. What happens next is still unknown. While prosecutors have signaled that an indictment is likely, it's important to note that it's not certain. And with the criticism being mounted against the Manhattan District Attorney's Office on the merits of the charges, the political fallout of the indictment may prove to be costly. But the question is, costly for who? Many believe it may not be for Donald Trump. We'll have to wait and see. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
For more on this, we're now being joined by Adil Nazarian from Washington, D.C. She's a media fellow from the Gold Institute for International Strategy. Welcome to the broadcast, Adil.
Thank you.
Adil, tell us as to what happens if the former U.S. President Donald Trump gets arrested, and is there any indication that an indictment could take place this week?
You know, thank you for that question. It's honestly a disaster. I think everyone knows it's unprecedented in history. You have other presidents that have actually tangibly committed visible crimes. There's Grover Cleveland, there is JFK. In terms of having extramarital affairs, this is an allegation. I want to just point out that in 2018, Stormy Daniels said herself that she had never had an affair with Donald Trump. If she did, in fact, do that, then she should have come out with the truth back then when she had first been questioned. If it only took $130,000 to keep her quiet temporarily, then I guess she's not very good at her job. But that's a whole different story, something I'm not agreeing with, obviously, in general. But I have to say, if he is, in fact, indicted, it is likely, according to a source that broke in the Daily Mail, to occur tomorrow, Wednesday, which will likely result in his court case taking place next week in New York. I'm sure there are arrangements being done, but I think what this is going to result in, frankly, is an upheaval and uproar and really bring into question the federal system and democracy as a whole in the United States of America, frankly.
Right, Adele. And what are the options left in front of Trump if he's indicted tomorrow, as per what the experts are saying?
What indictment in? Yeah. So essentially, I think that the experts depends on who you're speaking to. I think this is clearly a very divisive line of reasoning. You have experts who are on the left, experts who are on the right, who are each saying one thing that is opposing the other side of the aisle. And this is what it's come to. I think that this will result in a political upheaval. I think that we've seen reports of 36,000, I believe it was, or 64,000, not sure what the exact number is, of police officers throughout New York, in DC, who are preparing for an uproar of protests. And so I don't really know whether this is a healthy barometer for the future of our democracy, of America's democracy, frankly. But I do see this only further dividing the country. And I think what you're going to also see is further divisions in the Republican Party, frankly. And that's coming in 2024. It's a very, very dangerous game to play.
Right, Adele, I was just coming to that the security situation has also been beefed up in New York after Trump urged his supporters to demonstrate if he is charged. How is that likely to pan out?
You know, I think that January 6th, the Capitol Hill protests were really a indicator that, and even peaceful protests should not be taken up, because the media's responsibility, of course, is to uphold the truth. And I think we've noticed that a lot of the reports coming from the media were not accurately depicting what actually took place that day. So I think that if there are, in fact, protests that are going to take place in New York, which is likely, they will likely be painted, even if they're not, as being violent. And it's going to try to pin Republicans in a very negative light, and Trump supporters specifically. And I think that if you look at it, you have, let's say, on the Democratic side, there's groups like Antifa, there's other groups that are, let's say, aligned more with the left that have actually committed violent acts consistently, but the media has really not depicted them in the same fashion I've noticed as they have depicted the Trump supporters. And so while I don't agree with the bombastic and extreme language being used in some cases, I think when the former president does refer to what's being done to him as a witch hunt, there is a bit of credence to what he's saying in terms of the bias that has been heaved at him, which I think other presidents, if they had actually been held to the same standard, would have been locked up long ago.
Right, Adele, just to follow up to what you said, that Trump has called this a witch hunt. Many Republicans also say that the justice system is being weaponized for political reasons. How are the prosecutors responding to that?
You know, you're right. The justice system, the judicial system has been weaponized. And I think that because of the advent of social media taking such a leading role in terms of advocacy and reporting the truth, has been able to reveal this more in recent days than previously. God knows how many more cases like this have been just spun in a certain direction, politically motivated, and that haven't actually been taken to justice in the right way. So I think the way prosecutors are responding to this is that there is, unfortunately, even with judges, we've seen this, some political biases when it comes to judges that are ruling, and especially in the court that's in the circuit court that's being responsible for seeing Trump's trial come to fruition, which it likely will. There are reports surfacing that it's a George Soros judge, the DA, and that could also play a role in it. I just certainly hope that when the prosecution is asked to come to the stand and to actually examine this, that they do take into account everything that was done. For example, the reporting that the media had on Trump prior to his campaign election announcement in 2016, and the stark difference in how he was being covered once he actually announced, and also make sure that they do take into account the words that were said in 2018 by Stormy Daniels, when she herself said and admit that it was made up to get money, and the difference in the narrative once they saw an opportunity to potentially, derail him from his presidential aspirations. Twice impeached attempts, at least. They didn't actually remove him. But I think that this, what happens is this sort of attempt to dethrone or derail a person who has decided to take on the powers that be and go directly to the people will always, more often than not, rather, result in this type of scenario. And it's a lesson. It's honestly a lesson. I don't hope I'm getting off topic, but it's something that needs to definitely be examined.
Right. Thank you so
truth-
much for joining us in WION Adele and sharing your insights with us. We will, of course, be tracking this very closely. Thanks very much.
Thank you.